Hello and welcome to this FPL first draft for Game Week 1 video from me, Holly Shand. FPL is live for the new season. It's got a slick new look as well, and the big news is that with this truncated season with the World Cup, FPL managers get unlimited transfers for the World Cup break, and they still get 2 wildcards as well, one to be used before Game Week 16 and one to be used afterwards. So it's going to be a really exciting fantasy season, and you may see some new look graphics around here as well. If you are new, it would be great if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel for more great FPL advice throughout pre-season. Let's get into it. So when it comes to building a draft for FPL Game Week 1, we have to start with the top 2 clubs in the Premier League right now, Manchester City and Liverpool. Both have strengthened already during the summer transfer window, so I imagine they'll be battling it out this Premier League season as well. Now, starting off at Manchester City, a little bit difficult to triple up on their assets just because of the amount of rotation we see under Pep Guardiola, and especially with this season being one of the most congested. I think a double up is plenty. João Cancelo is an absolute lock in our fantasy defences, one of the top performing defenders last season, and he played the most minutes of any Manchester City outfield player, which is a huge plus for him. The big decision to make is in attack. Do you go with Kevin De Bruyne or do you go with Erling Haaland? Personally, I don't like to select unproven players in the Premier League. So right now, I'm going for Kevin De Bruyne. However, Haaland's ownership is absolutely scary already. So whether I can keep that up to Game Week 1 deadline, that remains to be seen. But right now, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm going with the proven asset in Kevin De Bruyne. Looking across to Liverpool assets then, and the triple up is definitely on for Liverpool. Some great opening fixtures for them as well, if you weren't convinced already. 2 names, though, are automatics on my team sheet, and Mo Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Mo Salah has been the top goal scorer over the last season and the last few seasons in the Premier League. He is, in a league of his own in terms of his output. So for me, he is a must own, and I think having had a full pre-season, he's really going to hit the ground running again this season and probably will be a lock for many for captaincy in Game Week 1 against Fulham away. Trent Alexander-Arnold also a must-have for me. Liverpool joint with Manchester City for clean sheets last season, and Trent created more chances than any other player in the Premier League. That includes, your creative midfielders like Bruno Fernandes, for example. So for me, Trent has to be the go-to. The big decision is who is the third Liverpool player. I think Andrew Robertson and Luis Diaz look to be the options to go for. Both look fantastic value, stayed the same price as they started last season. For me, when you look at points per game, even since Diaz joined the Premier League, Robertson is the superior player in terms of points per game. He's also a little bit more rotation proof. We have seen Liverpool bring in some key players in the attack, although I do think Diaz is first choice. But the fact that Robertson is a whole million cheaper than Diaz just edges it for me, for him being the one to go for in my Liverpool triple up. Now, aside from the top 2 teams, I like to use a fixture ticker to help me to decide where to go to for the rest of my fantasy assets. And then one I use is the members one over on Fantasy Football Hub. Now, Fantasy Football Hub have got a fantastic offering for the new season. I write articles on there. They've got some brilliant tools with the Opta-Stats, the fixture ticker, comparison tool and predictions as well. I write a regular weekly article looking at the best team for every single game week. Now, to get all of that, you need to be a member on Fantasy Football Hub, and the discount is phenomenal, 50% off for new memberships, and they're even guaranteeing if you use their product throughout the season and you don't win your mini league, you can get your money back. So what is there to lose by signing up and giving Fantasy Football Hub a go this season? If you are interested in becoming a new member on there, check out the link in the description below to get your 50% off membership. Looking at the fixture ticker then for the opening 8 game weeks, the team that stands out to me first of all are Arsenal. Top 5 team last season, really finished the season strongly, and for me I think it's more than viable to get a double up on their assets, because we saw last season that there were some great options both in attack and defence. Now, Saka was kind of the go-to who I was thinking of before the game launched. However, with a lack of options in the forward line, and because I'm not going Haaland, I think I may go with Gabriel Jesus. I was expecting him to come in somewhere between 8.5 and 9.5, but to have him at 8 is a bargain, and hopefully he can get penalties as well. There is a little bit of a risk involved there. We don't know whether he'll hit the ground running in an Arsenal shirt, but I'm willing to take the risk. Having a look at the other forward options in the game, Jesus is the one that I'm really interested in right now. Defence, there's some great value in there as well. Tomiyasu is the one that stands out for me. I think Ben White, there's concern around Arsenal fans that Saliba coming back could displace White. I think Tomiyasu is more nailed on. He is slightly more attacking in that fullback role, but we've seen his legacy from previous seasons at Arsenal and at the other clubs that he's played for, that he's maybe not the most prolific attacker. However, 4.5 million with the fixtures that Arsenal have got, you cannot go too far wrong by selecting Tomiyasu. Brighton and Brentford are two other teams that feature highly in the fixture ticker. For me, Brighton, I think their defence should be prioritised over their attack. And again, from Brentford, I think probably the defence is the one to go for, particularly now it looks like Eriksen won't be staying at Brentford. That just does put me a little bit off the Brentford attackers. But from the defence, we've got a decision to make for goalkeepers. Do we go with Robert Sanchez? Do we go with David Raya? Now, if you look at the stats from last season, Raya was actually ranked second for his save conversion percentage behind Jose Sarr. So I think in terms of value, I think he could be the most reliable one for clean sheets. So between the sticks, I'm going to be going for Raya, but it was a tough decision between those two. There was value elsewhere in that goalkeeper spot, particularly looking at the likes of Edison and Mendy. However, I'd still like to spend as little as possible in this slot, and I don't think we can trust the Chelsea defence, having seen the absentees in this window. Unless they sign some big defenders, I think I'll steer clear of the Chelsea goalkeeper. Now, I'm trying to avoid the likes of Leeds United and Nottingham Forest at the moment, just because promoted team, a team that struggled last season, with Rafinha potentially out the door as well. I don't think we can trust them. But moving further down the ticker to Spurs, I think they could be great options again this season. The trouble is, it's very difficult to fit one of their high value attackers in the likes of Kane or Son in our fantasy teams, while also being able to afford the likes of Salah and a Man City attacker. However, I do think Kulusevski could be a good compromise. There is a little bit of concern that he could share game time with Richarlison. However, Richarlison is banned for game week 1, so at least you're getting that fixture at home to Southampton out of him. They play Chelsea game week 2, which isn't the best, but beyond that, it's looking really good value. And in terms of, fantasy points last season, in 2022, Kulusevski was ranked in the top 5, obviously behind Kane and Son, but he didn't even start in the league till game week 24. So for me, he could be a real one to watch this season, and is a good compromise at 8 million. Now, I'm going to be doubling up on Spurs as well. When I saw Perisic come in as a defender and priced at 5.5 million, I thought he's got to be a must-have for our fantasy squads. I remember owning him in some, international tournament fantasy games before, where he's a midfield or a forward as a winger, and his output is fantastic. He is getting on a little bit now. Conte knows him very well, but he does tend to bring him off early, so hopefully he lands the right side of a 60-minute substitution. But he's been brought in to be the main attacking wing-back in this Spurs side, and we really need to think of him as a midfielder that gets us goals and assists, and the clean sheets are just a bonus. And I think I'm willing to take a risk on a player that's unproven in the Premier League, because he's so integral to Conte's system. Conte knows him very well, and obviously, some great fixtures for Spurs coming up as well. Their defence really improved under Conte last season to be ranked 4th in terms of clean sheets, so he could be a really good option to go for. Now, with all of those players picked, the budget did get tight for the 11th man in the team, but one player that I really picked out that could be the bargain of the season is Pedro Neto at Wolves. He decreased in price by a full £1 million, having missed a lot of the last campaign and some of the campaign before with a knee injury, but he's back fully fit now, had a good pre-season under his belt. 5.5 million for a player that managed 5 goals and 8 assists the season previous to the one that we've just had. If he can emulate those attacking returns this season, he could be an absolute fantasy gem. And looking over the first 5 game weeks, Wolves have a very kind run of fixtures. So this is how the team shapes out with that 11 that I've just shared with you. I've also put some bench options in. I've gone with the Brentford backup. I've seen a lot of love for Andreas Pereira on socials, who is moving to Fulham, just 4.5 million. He could be one to keep an eye on, but I do need to do a little bit more research on the 4.5 million midfielders and the 4.5 million forwards. Gale and Greenwood are the ones that make the cut at the moment, but they could change. I mean, the team could change itself quite a lot before the game week 1 deadline. That De Bruyne-Haaland decision and whether to ditch the expensive Spurs attackers for Kulusevski, that is going to be the really key decision to make this pre-season. But I would like to know what you think to my first draft. Is there anything that you would change? Do let me know. And if you've got any questions, anything that you need help with, do get in the comments and let me know, and I'll do my best to answer as many of them as possible. Check out in the description the link to the Fantasy Football Hub membership, 50% off, and win your mini league or your money back. Fantastic offer from them this pre-season. I'll be back with more videos in the next week. If you've enjoyed this one, give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll be back very soon. Thank you for watching.